What?
Yeah.
I wasn't told about that.
I know.
Surprise.
So, right? She wasn't expecting this. So yeah, it's here we go.
Okay.
Hey Mental Glowers, how is it going? Welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of Mental Glow / episode 42. I'm super excited. If it's your first time to tune in to Mental Glow, please do join us on our Instagram and X page, and don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel so we can get connected. And also it's a great opportunity for you to also learn more about mental health, and let's break the silence in this season 3. Alright, today I am so honored to have a sister, a friend, a colleague, Kimberly Harrison, right? I call her Kim, so feel free to call her Kim too. So yeah, she's a clinical mental health counselor, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
She's so passionate about working with neurodivergent kids, and I'm here to learn from her, and I do hope that you also get to learn from her, right? So yeah, welcome Kim.
Thank you. It's amazing to be with you, Jackie. I'm a loyal listener of Mental Glow, and
Right,
it's
she
awesome
is.
to be with you on the podcast.
It's like a dream come true, right? I'm like
Dream come true.
I was also like planning how can we, put this together so that we can create something that people can learn, and also find a way to also support and celebrate our differences.
Yeah, amazing. This is so meaningful to be with you
Right?
in this.
And
Yes.
also it's like a great opportunity because this episode is being published on Autism Awareness Day, and so like it's special, but also it's one way of us get to celebrate neurodivergent minds, right?
Amazing.
All right, so before we get started, as usual, we have M-Glow quizzing, where we get to ask you something that you didn't expect to be asked.
What?
Yeah.
I wasn't told about that.
I know.
Surprise.
So, right? She wasn't expecting this. So yeah, it's here we go.
Okay.
What is one fun fact about you?
Ooh.
Yeah.
One fun fact about me.
Yes.
All right, let me think. Fun. Okay. Well, I've been living on Zanzibar for 10 years, but I only recently discovered a new hobby that I'm super passionate about, and it's paddle boarding.
Wow.
And that's what my family and I are loving to do for fun together.
That's nice.
You grab your paddleboard, you go out on the ocean or in the mangroves, and it's quiet, and you feel the wind, and you're connected to nature and getting exercise, and it's so good for like my stress, my wellness.
Very therapeutic, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm like, what's up with those who are scared of water?
Oh yeah, well, it's the ocean. The ocean is wild. It can be scary. Learning to
true.
navigate it
Yeah.
safely.
I'm also like trying to be acquainted, should I use the word acquainted with, the ocean? Like, because at times it's like, it's very relaxing, but then you get, it gets tense, like with the waves and stuff, so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, I'm happy for you.
You gotta come with me.
One day, right?
We'll plan it.
What's good living in Zanzibar if you don't do that?
Yeah,
I mean,
right. I mean, it's when you do
yeah.
that kind of thing, you really realize the paradise that we're
Yeah.
living in. Yeah.
All right, let's get started. What is one fun fact about you? Please do comment on the comment section. Please do respond and share so we can start this conversation. So, as I already introduced, that we'll be celebrating neurodivergent minds in this episode. And before we get started, as we all know that right now, the term neurodiversity has gained a little bit more recognition, right? More people are starting to talk about it, more like trying to celebrate people with different ways of, perceiving and doing things.
Yeah.
But so many people usually don't get it right, what exactly it is. So would you please briefly tell us what does neurodiversity mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, neurodiversity refers to the fact, the reality that brains are all different, and that there's natural variation in how human brains learn, process information, and every way is valid. Every brain is valid. Every way is a valid way of being and experiencing this world. And this variation is really interesting to recognize, to understand. I'm glad that there's growing awareness about it. Brain differences can impact how we learn and how we process the world around us, sensory information, how we navigate social interactions. And so understanding our own brains or our own neurotypes, as well as those of the people around us and the people we love, it can be a really insightful lens.
Yeah, because in the end, we are living with these people, and so it's important. First of all, I always like to say it's important to first get to understand who you are as a person before you understand other people. And so I think this episode is going to be very impactful for people to get a moment of realization, and also not only I think it's just we're starting off this conversation, but people can also go somewhere else to learn more. And so just use this platform as a moment of realization and getting more knowledge about neurodiversity. And if you think that there is something that we're going to miss, do not hesitate to share or even ask, and we will definitely get back to them, right?
Sounds great.
Yeah. So could you please, you've gave a definition of neurodiversity, but could you touch base on what neurotype is?
Yeah, so there are different neurotypes or different general types of brains, right? So the term neurotypical, it describes a person whose brain functions in ways that are characteristic of kind of the most common or the most central range on the neurological spectrum. This means that their early childhood development might have happened and kind of they met markers of development in ways that are commonly expected. They process information, maybe have social processing styles that kind of match what society recognizes as the norm, okay? And moving through the world with a neurotypical brain can be an advantage because schools, workplaces, social events are often designed to cater to neurotypical people, right? And then the term neurodivergent refers to people whose brain types function differently from the neuronormative majority.
Makes sense.
So that means autism, ADHD, dyslexia. These are all examples of neurodivergence. And a significant part of the challenge of having a differently wired brain is that society often doesn't get it and doesn't understand what you need in order to thrive at school, at work, socially. And so neurotypical, neurodivergent, and then the word neurodiversity, that encompasses all of us. That's all of us. We all together make up the tapestry of neurodiversity. So it's not like one person can be neurodiverse. They can be neurodivergent, neurotypical, but it's us together that comes together to make up this diversity. Yeah.
Now, that's interesting because it's also like an aha moment for me. Like I was like, I thought neurodiversity only refers to people with autism and ADHD, but then now it makes sense, like it's just all of us celebrating our differences, right?
Exactly. It's one component of human diversity, right? Like we have diversity of ethnicity, race, gender, age, and neurodiversity refers to kind of the cognitive diversity that makes up what it means for us all together to be human and unique in who we are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Get that? So for example, ADHD is neurotype, right?
Yes, ADHD is a neurotype, and it's a type of brain wiring that's often characterized by attention differences and sensory processing differences. And if you know, for example, that you or someone you love is an ADHDer, it can be really useful because it can open the way for greater understanding and support.
Yeah, true. I mean, like, we see it in workplaces, schools, like, people are struggling on how to, accommodate the differences and celebrate the differences. I think getting to understand that, but also create an environment where every person is being valued based on their differences, I think it could really bring a huge impact into the community.
Oh, I love that you said that, Jackie. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, like, at times, wait, before I even say this, let me ask you this. So do you think is neurodiversity a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, neurodiversity just is, right? It's just the reality. And it's just part of us all being ourselves and being human. And in general, diversity is a good thing, right? There's strength in diversity. So learning to understand neurodiversity is just one component of the diversity is helpful.
Yeah, great. And so speaking of neurodiversity and the fact that it's Autism Awareness Day, I think it's also important to get to understand this. I've heard of autism, ADHD, and do you think they can be described as developmental disorders?
Okay, so the neurodiversity paradigm, it represents a shift in thinking. Okay, instead of thinking about our cognitive differences in terms of diseases that need to be treated or cured, or disorders, instead we're understanding them as differences that are characterized by both challenges and strengths. So, the medical model is really useful when I'm sick, right? If I have cancer, I want the treatment and the cure. But brain differences are simply not best understood in terms of sicknesses or disorders. They're just differences. And that language doesn't really capture the fullness or capture in a meaningful way what it means to be neurodivergent. So not all doctors, not all pediatricians, more and more people are gaining more awareness and sensitivity in how they practice this. But traditionally, the medical model has suggested that there is one right way for brains to develop and function, the normal way, and the neurotypical way, right? And that any other ways are flawed. They're disordered and they need to be treated and fixed. And so you see this way of conceptualizing it is also reflected in the language that the medical model has given us. So, for example, autism is referred to in the medical paradigm as autism spectrum disorder. And ADHD is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So already in our common language, we have this perspective woven in. But the neurodiversity paradigm insists that people with brain differences, such as ADHD or autism, do not have brains that are broken or are disordered. Neurodivergent people are not failed neurotypical people. They're perfectly good neurodivergent people, right? With strengths and challenges just like everyone. And it's really important to talk about the strengths because often in the medicalized model, we're just talking about deficits or weaknesses. We're not thinking in terms of differences that can be characterized as strengths as well. So we don't get the whole picture. So for example, if you have an autistic kid and all you're ever told is what's wrong with them, what they're lacking or deficit in, you might believe the story. And is it even a fair one? No. Uniquely wired brains all have strengths that are too often overlooked. Neurodivergent minds are frequently some of the most innovative, creative, pioneering, change-making, trailblazing minds. And we don't do people justice by conceptualizing any brain type as a problem.
About the positivity,
I mean, so many of the great contributions to society have come from neurodivergent minds. Einstein Mozart. Recently, Bill Gates said that he's neurodivergent. These are just some examples of people whose neurodivergent brains have pushed society forward. So I believe that we need neurodiversity. And just like in our physical environment, our biological environment, we need diversity in order to have a healthy, sustainable biological environment. We need neurodiversity to have a healthy and sustainable cognitive environment.
Here's a challenge for it. I like what just Kim said. Instead of, focus on the weakness, let's just focus on the strength, right? Let's focus on the positive things, because if we dwell in the weaknesses that a person has, then we may not see the bigger picture. Like, how can we best support a person? So positivity.
We want the full picture, right? The truest picture that encompasses more than just challenges or deficits.
I love that. I already love neurodiversity. All right, so for parents, right? Parenting is hard, I can imagine, right? So how, for first-time moms, and also for parents that have had children before, how can they identify if their kids are neurodivergent, or they indicate that they may have
this is a great question. And so what often happens is that parents begin to notice differences in our kids. And it can be that the focus becomes on the challenges that the child is experiencing, or that the family is experiencing and supporting the child. And that whole experience can be really hard. But what can be even harder is to get the message that there might be something wrong with your child, right? And so, for example, if we just start with the premise that all brains are valid, and we're not looking for a problem to cure, but for a difference to understand, we can approach it differently, right? So can we do some can we workshop some case studies together, Jackie? Okay. So let's think, for example, about Juma. Juma is a 5-year-old little boy whose parents have always felt he's special, and in many ways he's different from his older siblings. They love him, and they're also worried because it seems like maybe he doesn't interact with other people in the way they would expect him to. So they bring Juma to you, Jackie, and you notice that Juma is often looking elsewhere when he's talking. So there's differences in nonverbal communication. You notice they tell you that he wants to eat the exact same breakfast every morning and to sit in the same chair in the family room.
If you change it, it's a problem.
Yeah, he has this strong preference for sameness and for routine. And then you're talking to him and you discover he knows everything there is to know about dinosaurs. He is a little dinosaur expert. And he also really doesn't like to be in public places that are noisy, and sometimes he'll cover his ears and find it really overwhelming. And his parents are telling you that at play dates, he'll play side by side with other children rather than more interactively. And he plays with his dinosaurs by arranging them all from biggest to smallest, whereas some of his peers might grab a dinosaur and try to do an imaginative play, and he just doesn't flow with that so much. And so, if we're considering Juma's unique characteristics and preferences, what neurotype might he be?
Yeah.
He might be autistic, right?
Autistic, yeah. And many parents or even caregivers are struggling to understand how can I best support my child. It's not like you said before, it's not something that we are used to, and so getting to understand the differences and finding a way to best support this child based on his or her strength and differences, it could really bring a positive impact into the family, but also supporting the developmental milestones of this child, right?
100%. It's so true. And what we're often navigating in the early days is just a tremendous amount of anxiety and fear for our child. And what can be more useful is curiosity.
Like that.
That's different.
Yeah.
I wonder what this behavior means to him. I wonder how this is useful for him. What is he really great at?
Yeah.
What are the tricky situations, and how can we support in that, right? But the first step is understanding our neurotypes so that we have a language and a framework around which to begin to provide support. Do you want to do another one?
Yes. You ready?
Okay, let's do another one. All right, let's think about Ahmed. All right.
Ahmed.
He is a passionately curious little boy who has big dreams. So when you talk to him, you learn that maybe one day he'll be a mechanical engineer. Oh, wait, no. He's going to be an entrepreneur. And he already has multiple business ideas. And one of them he's actually trying out at his school, selling candies. Oh, but wait, no. He's going to, no, wait, scratch that. He definitely wants to be an astronaut because, that would just be the best thing, to go out into outer space and explore. And he's super energetic, and he's moving around the room the whole time he's talking to you, and he's fidgeting with his fingers, and he's expressing himself with his whole body. And he talks rapidly, and he is really excited about the things he's talking about. And one of his interests is solving Rubik's Cubes. And so he goes into detailed explanations to you, trying to teach you. It's not that hard once you know the algorithm and he's explaining to you about how to solve the Rubik's Cube. Like,
I'm already like, I know these people.
And then his parents tell you, like, oh yeah, he's really engaged in the present moment, but he needs tons of reminders about future tasks. And it can be really tricky, and he also needs things really broken down in order to accomplish them. And then his teacher is saying that he's struggling socially with friendships at school because his communication style is just to talk on and on about his specific interests rather than slowing down and allowing back and forth. But the good thing is that Ahmed has found a best friend who shares his similar interests, and their interactions are bubbly and joyful and energetic, and they can be quirky together and vibe together, and they just get each other. Okay, what's your guess, Jackie? What neurotype might Ahmed be?
ADHD.
Yeah, he's an ADHDer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with both tricky things and incredible strengths to support and lean into and enjoy.
I mean, I'm like, there are times I wish I was, like that, because I'm like, how interesting, how cool it is to, be adventurous, as in trying to find different ideas that you can do. And this is where we get to understand that it's important to, celebrate our differences, because look at me, I may be very detail oriented, but when it comes to creativity, I might take, it takes a toll on me, trying to be creative. But for some people, it's easy, it's just a few seconds, they have an idea. And so, getting to, for instance, in workplaces, getting to accommodate and also, celebrate and celebrate our differences, it would really bring a huge impact even into the company itself, right?
100%. Right, because we're all good at different things. And so if the person who's really detail-oriented is encouraged to be really good at that and bring that to her team, and the person who's the big picture thinker and the dreamer is encouraged to bring that to your team, and everybody is able to work out of their strengths and be celebrated for those, what a difference that makes.
Right, and also I hate it. I do hate it. When a person tries to tell another person, you know what, stop dreaming. That's not realistic, right? And it's given our culture, Tanzania, the Swahili culture that we have, most parents usually do that. If they find their kids very creative, always onto something, trying to put things together, they could open a machine or something, a tiny machine or something, trying to understand what's in there, and then the parent will be like, I really can't deal with this child, right? But then getting to understand how capable, all the potential that the child has, that could really support the cognitive development even of that kid, right?
Absolutely. And I think that, all of us in all of our cultures are navigating neurodifferences.
Yeah.
Right? It's not unique to any particular
Not only
one
here.
of us. When we have a
Yeah.
kid who's wired really differently than we are, it takes some real work to lean in and to understand and to kind of bridge those differences.
So you're not alone. Yeah.
You're not alone, and there's so much to be said about finding your people, finding your tribe of neurodiverse families who are also navigating this.
And so for those parents that currently could be a parent, it could be a caregiver, or even like a sibling that is currently trying to understand the differences between having a child who is, how can they know that, she's probably just shy or just energetic versus, may need further assessments. Like, how can you differentiate that?
Good question. Yeah. So generally, we turn to assessments when we need more information, right? So assessments can be really useful when a kid is struggling in their environment because it can increase our understanding and then it can open possibility for greater support. So the thing in the differentiating is that it really only becomes relevant if something is a problem. So for example, if a child is painfully shy, and it stops them from doing what they want to be doing, well then maybe it's useful to think about some support around that. But if a child is happily doing their own quirky stuff and is able to participate in their lives happily, then it doesn't necessarily flag a concern.
Yeah.
It's, things are working. So these kinds of non-harmful differences can just be supported and accommodated in common sense ways. But it's especially helpful to think in terms of a mismatch between the person and their needs and their environment. So, like, if their needs can be met and bridges can easily, differences can easily be bridged, then, for example, okay, this child, I just know as a mom that when we go to a new environment, we go half an hour early to let them settle in, get to know the environment, feel comfortable, warm up to it, and you just do that, then just do that, right? The support and understanding is in place. But when you're running out of tools about how to support your kids' needs or differences, or you need more language and understanding around how they're wired and ideas for tricky situations or how can we help them to thrive even more, then that's where assessments can really be useful.
That's great. And so, like, at first you told me that we are all neurodivergent, right?
Well, we all together make up neurodiversity, and then people whose brains are functioning outside of that neuronormative majority, they are neurodivergent. Okay. Yes.
Great. And so for those parents, what could be the steps that a parent can take if they suspect that the children or a kid is neurodivergent?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So if you're suspecting that your child might be neurodivergent, might have unique brain wiring, and that's showing up in different ways. So I'd say the first thing is to become really curious about your kid and to notice, that's different than I expected. That's interesting. I wonder what this is really like for them. I wonder how this behavior is useful for them. I wonder what they really need. And also becoming curious instead of becoming really scared or fearful. Because if we're going back to all brains are valid, that means that your child is already wonderful in how they exist, right? So the prospect of a diagnosis or of identifying a non-normative neurotype, it can be scary for parents, and this is largely due to the fact that there's so much ableism and stigmatization of differences. But you know your child, and your child is your child, no matter what. You know that they're wonderful, no matter what. And if they're struggling, it's not because they're not trying hard enough. It's because there's a mismatch between the person and what the environment is expecting of them. And so this curiosity, if you can cultivate and really lean into curiosity, this can become really useful for your child in getting to know them better and finding ways forward. And then I would also just say for us parents, managing our own experience of this, managing our own feelings, because so much of supporting neurodivergent kids, it comes down to us as their grown-ups, they're big people, managing our own anxieties and the way that we are responding to differences or surprises.
Kudos to all parents out there.
Yeah. The way that we talk to them or the way we talk about them, this really matters.
Yeah.
So managing ourselves. So parenting is hard, and parenting neurodivergent kids, it comes with special challenges that can be really hard, right? So whatever you're feeling, if it's anxiety or fear or grief, these are all valid feelings. It's legitimate, but it's so key to manage your experience in such a way as to not harm your child, their self-concept or their experience of acceptance. So one of the things that I get to do that I love is I'm running a parent group called Parenting the Spicy Ones. And it's all parents of in the neurodiversity community, we talk about neurospicy or neurosparkly kids as a term of endearment for these neurodivergent kids. Yeah. So really finding other parents who are navigating similar things can be so helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Finding your people, because sometimes sometimes our extended family doesn't understand, or our normal support systems haven't really grappled with this.
That is in DAR, right?
Yeah, that support group is in DAR. Yeah. Reach out to me if you're interested.
We'll share the Kim's contacts on the caption part, so definitely check it out. And where exactly is it located, the group?
This group is being run out of Premier Care Clinic in Masaki. Yeah.
So check it out, have your people share your experiences and get the support that you need, right?
Yeah.
Because we all need each other in the end.
Yeah.
All right, so you've already touched base on where exactly they can find you. And so one important question is that, because I know that parents are all over, like many parents with neurodivergent kids are all over. There's so many and some not so many in Tanzania, but where exactly can they get the support? Do you have like specific people that they can consult?
Yes. So in terms of professional support, so in general, professionals who can support families navigating neurodiversity, depending on the specific needs. It can include psychologists and counselors, like you and me, Jackie. It can be also pediatricians, especially developmental pediatricians, and also occupational therapists. And for children's assessments here in Tanzania, I recommend Amechi Nduka-Agwu. She's a counseling psychologist at Premier Care Clinic in Dar, and she specializes in psychoeducational assessments and neuroaffirming care. She's a great resource. And then for adult assessments and supports for families, I'm here.
There she is.
I'm here. This is what I love. I'm at Zanaid Clinic in Chukwani, here in Zanzibar. And then for medical considerations, like including medication as a support for ADHD, we have Dr. Rumtula,
Yes, we do.
a developmental pediatrician who's working both in Dar and here in Zanzibar at
She's the only one
Wajamama.
in Tanzania, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there are many pediatricians, but she's really trailblazing as a
Yeah.
developmental pediatrician.
And she just published her book, right?
That's what I've heard. I haven't seen it
cool.
yet. Oh, yep.
Yeah.
So those are some professionals to consider. If you're thinking about an assessment for your kid, be really clear in your own mind and also with the professional that you're working with that you're looking to identify your kid's strengths as well as addressing the tricky situations, that you want to know what will really help them to thrive. So you're not just looking in terms of deficits, but you're getting the fuller picture, right? And what strategies, what tools, what approaches, what information might be really useful to make a difference for this kid's thriving. That's kind of the goal of the assessments, to come away with something really useful and beneficial.
This just got me thinking that some things need to change in our education system, right? Like to support neurodivergent kids, because in the end, I don't really think that the Tanzanian curriculum supports neurodivergent kids, and so this is a challenge to the Ministry of Education to do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, back to the parents. What advice do you have to parents that have just currently figured that their kid or his kid might be a neurodivergent kid?
Yeah. Well,
what advice do you?
I keep coming back to it, but again, all brains are wonderful brains, right? So this is not a disease to be cured or fixed. It's a difference to understand and support. So oftentimes parents already know things that work for their child. You know, they're the experts on their kids, always. And sometimes they just need to be given permission to do what works. And parenting a neurodivergent kid, it might be that what works for this kid is different than how your parents raised you.
Yeah.
Or even maybe than how you've parented their sibling.
True.
And sometimes we just need permission to do something differently.
Yeah.
And in a way that maybe societal norms don't always expect, right? So to just be the expert on your kid. Be curious, pay attention to what works for them, and be flexible to meet them where they're at. It's okay. It's okay to parent in your way and in the way that works for your family, right? You get to do that. You get to do that for them.
Yeah.
And that's really liberating. And you know, so much of what we navigate in supporting neurodivergent people is, and in being neurodivergent, if you are a neurodivergent person, is that there are these societal constructs about what it means to be polite. Like, what is polite behavior?
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of that is just neurotypical constructs, right? So, like, when we're looking at parenting a neurodivergent kid, it's maybe less helpful to think, is that polite behavior or is that kind and useful behavior, right? We don't want to compromise on the ethics of being kind. But if they prefer not to make eye contact in talking with you, is that really about kind, you know? I mean, maybe let them look where they want to look.
Yeah.
And don't make it into a respect issue if the child is fundamentally respectful and struggles with eye contact, right? Let them be them and be okay with doing some things differently for the sake of your kid. And then, you know, just acknowledge, like, the whole experience can be really hard as a parent. I mean, most of us didn't grow up with this knowledge. I didn't. And we're still learning. we're just learning as we go. It can be really new for most of us. So just have grace for yourself. And, you know, sometimes when we start doing things differently, it might incur judgment from other people, or maybe even internalize, like, judgment from ourselves, right? But it's okay to give yourself permission to just be on this journey, loving your kid well and being responsive to who they are. And accepting kindness, right? Extend your self-kindness so that you can also extend your kids' kindness.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. And so let's talk about the misconceptions that you've come across as an expert.
So many. So many. How much time do we have, Jackie? This is going to be like a 4-hour podcast.
We don't have the whole day.
Okay. Let me try to... Okay. Misconceptions. All right. Misconception number 1. Neurodivergence is a mental illness. Nope.
It's not.
It's not. It is a neurotype.
Yeah.
It is not an illness. Okay, so neurodivergent people are more at risk for mental illness, and this is because they have to work so much harder than neurotypical people to function in societies that are catering to neurotypical people. So they are, in many ways, a disadvantaged minority.
Yeah.
And this can create risk for mental health disorders. And so it's really important to support neurodivergent people's mental health. But it's distinct. The two are not the same thing, right? Okay, misconception number 2. People often have a very narrow view of what a particular neurotype looks like. So take autism, for example. If you have met one autistic person, you have met one autistic person. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, if you've met one woman, you have met one woman.
Not the same.
Not the same. If you've met one neurotypical
Yeah.
person, you've met one neurotypical person. And we cannot begin to assume that we understand an autistic person's strengths and challenges simply based on another autistic person. Autism is a vast spectrum of experiences and ways of experiencing the world. So really, like, these kinds of like narrow stereotypes don't do justice, are not helpful. So better to be curious than to make assumptions, right?
No assumptions.
Yeah. So that's another misconception. Another one is that, oh yeah, they will grow out of their neurodivergence, right?
Shame.
Nope. A person's lived experience and their behavior can change and develop over time. So, for example, things like your environmental accommodations, your self-understanding, your coping skills, your own growth and development can really make a difference in how you feel and how you function. But your brain is yours and it's with you for life. And embracing it and working with it rather than against it is really the way forward. So that's another common misconception. Another one is that autism, ADHD, neurodivergence in general are more prevalent in one culture than in another, or that it's a new thing. No, this diversity has always been with us.
You just didn't know.
We're just learning how to embrace it, accept it, understand it, talk about it, support it. So there's really, I really think that the neurodiversity paradigm, in many ways, at its core, it's a social justice movement. It's a neuro-inclusion, neuro-justice movement that recognizes differences that have not always been seen, valued, supported.
Oh wow, that's like that goes to my second question. Is it second or sixth question? Like, you know, it's all over the world, right? And so, like, in not just to be focused in Tanzania, like, what can we do as a society in general to change things, especially when we look at neurodiversity or neurodivergence? What can we do to change the norm?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that can be done. It can start at a really small level, right? So if there's someone in your life who acts differently, interacts differently, who you notice, I don't really understand, just kind of checking judgment and becoming curious and figuring out how can I encourage them to be fully themselves. That's already super meaningful that all of us can be doing. And then like what you're doing here, Jackie, with this podcast and psychoeducation is the way forward. When we know better, we can do better, right? When we don't know, it's harder to navigate. And so the more we learn and lean into that learning, we can support better. And so I'm so excited about this podcast and the work you're doing and that. And then another thing that comes to mind is just training of professionals, including in the medical community. As more doctors and pediatricians are embracing new ways of thinking about neurodiversity, they can provide more neuroaffirming care, which is also really important. And then I would also say really listening to the voices of people who are living this experience. So centering neurodivergent voices, centering autistic advocates, ADHDers, and there are amazing psychologists who themselves are neurodivergent and who are leading the way. And we need to be listening to them. And just continuing in small ways and big to be inclusive and to treat all people with dignity, respect, enabling them to thrive in who they are.
Can I have you for the whole day?
We could go the whole day. This is so fun to be with you in it.
Oh my goodness. So we've talked about a lot, right? And some people are just taking it in. So just to make more emphasis on some things, what key takeaway would you like for our listeners to, get or go with it and share or spread the word to the people that they care about?
Oh yeah, one key takeaway.
Because I have a lot.
I think the thing I'm coming back to is the curiosity piece. Just checking judgment, even if judgment comes up in you can make a choice to put that aside and to become curious. When you're around someone who you just think, they're wired differently than me, it seems, to really think about how can I support this person in being fully themselves? What small thing can I do to be encouraging, to be inclusive, to make life a little better and easier across differences? And I mean, when we're curious and we follow that curiosity, it opens so much in terms of understanding, in terms of deepening relationships, new possibilities emerge. And like even doing a podcast together on the topic. I think Jackie, it's our curiosity that brought us here. And so nurturing it and following it.
Yeah, I love it. Curiosity, understand, support, right?
Yeah.
And so if we do that, then we're going to change the narratives and the norm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing. Often, I mean, so much of this we've been talking about as a parent or as a caregiver, but something that's commonly happening is that a child will be identified as neurodivergent, and then the parent will also realize, oh my gosh, I'm the same neurotype, because there wasn't the same level of awareness and support when us big people were little. And so these things often show up in clusters in families. And so even if you're thinking in terms of young people or kids, all of this is relevant to us grown-ups as well. And so if you're kind of listening to this and thinking, I'm curious about myself, follow that curiosity.
Yeah, don't suppress it, please.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, so before we wrap up this episode, we just want to give a pat on the back to Kim. Thank you for being a change maker, and thank you for doing this, for being passionate about this, because it's not easy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. You invest your time to, learn and grow. And so we just want to give shout outs to you and for also taking the time to join us in this episode. We truly appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so grateful for you, Jackie. It's such an honor to be your colleague in this space. Thank you for all that you do to make this podcast possible, for all the good clinical work you do, and thanks for this wonderful conversation today.
She's so sweet. All right, thank you guys. I do hope that you've learned and grasped something in this episode, and definitely if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. And until we meet in the third episode of season 3, or episode 43, we've come a long way.
Wow.
Don't forget to tune in, and let's celebrate our differences, right? And continue to be curious and understand and support. And if you feel like you need to reach out to Kim, definitely do. It's worth it. All right, so thank you so much, and take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, and we truly appreciate you and we celebrate you. And so let's celebrate ourselves. Bye.
Bye.